Is Edge of Fate good or bad? Should be an easy question, right? Maybe not. Views range from a positive step narratively, and build crafting being opened up to many more options, to it's the worst thing to happen ever. At least according to Twitter users. And there's some valid reasons for this too. The grind can be brutal, Caldera's life, and PvP is still PvP. Since we are rather close to Ash and Iron, we have experienced pretty much everything base Edge of Fate has to offer. Here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. This isn't just my opinion either, because I'll probably bias slightly towards being a Bungie shill, I will admit it. So I asked the Discord what they both like and didn't like since Edge of Fate. And the trend of comments was quite clear, so these are what I'll go off of. And to keep track of if we've had more positives or negatives, here's the plan. For every negative, a car will be added to the scoreboard. There's no reason why for this choice of image. And for every positive, a traveller. Granted, some things are subjective, so maybe a bit of score on both sides, but when you have things like the 10 billion day 1 raid bugs, there's no doubt where this one's going. And I'm going to do something never before seen in the Destiny community and end with the positives. So that means up first, what were the problems in Edge of Fate? This maybe wasn't what I expected to be the most common complaint, but it was all to do with stats. This includes limited stat distributions on new armour, and the inability in getting what you want to make builds work. Also the disconnect between what Bungie stated stat values will do compared to what they actually did. The funny thing is on the last part is Bungie could have simply not stated what modern stat values will translate to compared to the old, but they did. And then expectations were not met. This seems to happen quite a lot. 70 in a given stat such as melee would translate to 100 of that stat in the old system. Turns out this wasn't the case at all, you needed to invest much higher. Similar issue with mobility, the leg mod Enhanced Athletics was supposed to give plus 30 mobility, which is also now an invisible stat so you can't even check. Turns out it was giving plus 10. This less than expected benefit from stats is for sure a negative, and some bits of this have been fixed since release, but not being able to use a build you wanted to in the first few weeks at max effectiveness sucked. When this system was marketed as a way to make build crafting easier. Oh, and also exotics being tier 2, like what is even up with that? On the kind of limited armor stat packages, I can see where this is coming from a little bit. It makes getting a primary stat a bit easier, and removes wasted stat points similar to what spiky armor was doing before. Or at least that would be the case if the armor focusing ghost mod actually did anything. As it stands though, the sets we have are too limited. And being cynical for a moment, let's be real, people just want super and weapon as a combination. And it seems like they might be saving this particular one for later armor sets to kind of artificially increase its value. Either way though, not being able to get certain stat distributions with the new armour is absolutely a negative. Okay fine then, this one's the low hanging fruit, it's the power grind. This includes the following. Solo slops being the most effective, early armour and weapons being effectively throwaways, Caldera, repeating the same activities over and over, nerfing anything if it becomes too quick, heavy RNG reliance between 400 and 450 power, Caldera, on guard and new gear score bonus, fireteam ops giving dogshit score multipliers, and Caldera. Think that's all of it. The tier system has a lot of positives which we're saving for later, but the problem most people have is the method of obtaining these higher tiered gear pieces. There isn't really any skill expression or deterministic way of leveling. The hardest content in-game, Desert Perpetual 5 feet, won't even give you gear above your current power. The only way to level is play portal activities. Right now the meta for this is just playing short solo ops activities, Caldera or K1 logistics. These are nothing special at all. K1 is legit just a lost sector. There was times where Pinnacle Ops, which are just old exotic missions, was the best way to level, but these got nerfed quite quickly. What do I think the major issues are here? It feels a bit half-baked. Having solo ops as a minus grind to eventually reach max power is fine, but it being the only or best option is not. Having zero difficult raid or dungeon content as the most efficient farm is crazy. If there was a choice between challenging yourself for faster progression, or reclined activities for slower but consistent progression, I don't think this would be nearly as much of a problem. Of course, there is always going to be a most efficient method, and people will flock to that regardless of what it is, like what happened with Encore. But it would be better for a most efficient method to be an endgame activity, ideally a group one rather than a lost sector. In terms of pinning down the pain points with the grind, here they are. The optimal method of levelling is just uninteresting. The time taken to reach max light level is way too long. There's awkward score modifiers which want you to use new gear when there's not even that much new gear to cover all types of builds, and the RNG required for the final 50 levels is just ridiculous. And my personal biggest concern wasn't brought up a lot, but I feel like if this trend continues in the future, it will become more and more apparent. Parts of the game, particularly live service elements, are being taken away, which, yeah, fair enough, some were kinda mid, but then they got replaced with nothing. Seasonal story getting a little bit stale? Okay, fine, how about no seasonal story? Bonfire Bash being around for 3 years now? Okay, no Bonfire Bash, how about you just farm Caldera instead? Realistically, the only reason Solstice having no in-game activity at all was mostly accepted is because it conveniently coincided when everyone was just grinding portal slops anyway. Would it be accepted if Festival of the Lost was just Caldera again? Not even Haunted Caldera. Again, these activities weren't exactly great by any means, but just having things taken away without replacement is not it. At least the rewards from Solstice this year was admittedly quite good, but these might need to be available more than once yearly now. Maybe a universal event currency where you can buy previous event rewards whenever one is available. Finally, for the negatives, there was some additional pain points players had which was not related to the power grind, and these are no response to outliers in PvP. At the start of the season, smoke bombs were really obnoxious, and they still are. Once more people picked up on the Graviton Spike and the Aureus Neutralizer, they were also obnoxious and still are. On PvP 2, the cheaters. This isn't a new issue at all, but it is one which seems to get worse over time. The blatant cheaters might get banned eventually, maybe, but Zimothy and the DMA gang, yeah, there's just no chance. On top of that, the scum are in PvE now too, with up to 70% of Desert Perpetual contest clears involving some kind of cheating. Bit sad innit? Desert Perpetual content had another issue too, gameplay stability bugs. Think you are going to get your ammo and super back from the rally flag? Yep, think again. Lord of Wolf should fire a 5 burst, best I can offer is a 2 burst. The worst part is these issues are not even new. Back in the Sunder Doctrine dungeon day 1, my team were facing exactly the same issues, except this time was also getting error coded whenever any of them occurred, which was a lot. If I ever see error code bird again, it is too soon. I'm not game developer smart enough to know exactly why this happens, but it does seem to be something like a memory leak issue similar to what happens if you have a new Nvidia graphics card. And certain things which rapidly give you different buffs accelerate it much more quickly. Bolt Charge is the biggest offender. If you want to give everyone in your fire team a miserable experience, just spam Bolt Charge. But in a contest mode like Desert Perpetual, if you didn't use Bolt Charge, you wouldn't even get a clear. To recap, here are the negative points. A total of 10 cars. Enough to fill a whole garage. But now on to better things. I can feel the D2 negativity posting start to take over, and if you want more of that, don't worry though. There's probably like 50 more channels doing it exclusively. You can't deny build crafting has become so much better. From armour set bonuses to stats doing something, to not having to rely on 100 resilience before you even consider making a build. Some really good things to come from this is previously niche or for fun builds, which can now be invested into enough that they become genuinely viable. Things like Ashen Wake Titan or Tempest Strike Hunter couldn't really loop consistently before the build crafting changes, but now they can. I've really enjoyed things such as the TechSec armour set working with glaives, so now they can tear through enemy shields, as well as disorientate all nearby enemies, something you really want with an aggressive build, which just wasn't available before. Then there's the stat bonus effects going above 100. If you really want to invest in part of a build, this is really nice. Nade spammers can get 65% more damage on every nade, which turns out to matter quite a lot when paired with other buffs and the grapple. If you want supers more frequently and hitting harder, that's possible too, and same with weapons. With these 100 plus stats, there's probably still a few balancing issues, which makes some more desirable than others' weapons, but still a step in the right direction. And I can see the kind of comments about these features aren't included in Edge of Fate. You can still make use of all this new stat and armour system stuff without paying. So, for positives only included in the DLC, there's plenty on Kepler, including the narrative and world tiers, and plenty for the Desert Perpetual raid too. So let's get into those. To be honest, I thought with the previous yearly DLC being split into two, this was going to hit story content the most. There's been some bangers with the final shape and Witch Queen, and I expected the Edge of Fate to be akin more to something like Beyond Light, at least in terms of length. Turns out this wasn't the case at all, with it being likely the longest campaign so far and a compelling story within it. Lodi wasn't as out of place as it originally seemed. I know that's kind of the point of the character, but I mean like kind of uncanny vibes rather than from a different time. And having the 9 involved is an easy setup for many DLCs. I'm sure you can probably guess how many DLCs too, to come in the future. The destination abilities as well as the aesthetics of the destination have had mixed reviews, and these abilities were maybe just a little overused, but still it's better than not trying out anything at all. World tiers is something I really want to see going forwards. It solves a lot of problems with patrol areas being either too easy or forced into being underlight at all times. And being able to get higher tier drops from patrol spaces is great too. Real ones know of the tier 5 loot cave. Desert Perpetual is very good. I mean this in terms of replayability, encounter design, loot, and on top of that is one of the only activities where the tier of said loot isn't dependent on light level, it's dependent on how challenging you make the activity. I want to see more of this. I even think the contest mode is quite good too, and that's coming from a team who didn't clear it, because the resident cheater was away for that weekend. But in all seriousness, the raid contest experience does seem to be getting better, cheaters and bugs aside. There is some conspiracy theorists amongst us saying it wasn't tuned correctly, and I can kind of see this point. The damage gates were particularly tight, though it didn't help that 3 out of 4 encounters was extended damage phase bosses, while the extended damage phase weapons were pretty much banned. What is pretty cool though is there is going to be a kind of second contest run. 27th of September, the Epic Raid will also have contest mode. Don't know entirely what this entails, but do try and give it a go. There's nothing quite like contest mode raids. Although apparently, if you didn't get a high placement finish, your opinions on contests don't matter, so moving on. Other things which I hope most can agree on are pretty good changes include the following. The firing range. Greg the Grassboger has been having a rough last few years, so it's nice we can finally have a break and the firing range version of Greg can be used for damage testing instead. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Crucible does feel a lot more rewarding, especially when you get to higher power levels. Getting 2 to 3 pieces of high statted armour and some spicy new weapons from a standard Crucible game is much better. The rocket sidearm is great, and Trials has some bangers too. The 2-part set effect of health regen on ammo pickup and the kinetic shotgun hand cannon are a few standouts. There's a whole bunch of new weapon archetypes. Plenty of these including spread shot hand cannons, spread shot scout rifles, crossbows, longbows, rapid slugs and rocket pulse rifles. On top of it, all of these have ranged from good to very good in terms of effectiveness, especially the rocket pulse rifles. Farming for weapons is much better now. You can either wait until a weapon or armour piece you want is featured and get it as an additional drop over and over, with the event weapons such as Solstice and Heavy Metal also dropping a lot, seeming to be at least a single drop per activity completion. And this is on top of the regular loot you get. Most importantly, all weapons you get at tier 3 or above will have at least 2 columns of perks to choose from, heavily reducing RNG in getting the combination you want. We need more weapons on this system, but it's a good baseline to build on going forwards. So gathering these points, it leads to 10 Travellers. A balanced mix of good and bad. This wasn't planned either. I honestly expected more bad. Edge of Fate has some good in it, but it's clear to see it's trying to build a sturdy foundation for future expansions to come. If build crafting options keep coming in and raid quality remains high, there is potential. But there has been some huge blunders. The portal as a whole has not been that well received, and it feels like a lot of older content has been cut aside and now it's just limited to quite simple activities as you play on repeat for loot, which has nowhere to be pushed to its limits. There's also been a bit too much reliance on kind of old reprised seasonal activities to pad out playtime, with no innovation for seasonal or holiday content at all. These just got the axe with no compromise. The future could be bright, but it's a wait and see. Ashen Iron is right around the corner, and hopefully this gives us a bit more of an idea as to how the content structure will look like. And the first preview of Renegade is coming up too. This DLC will not have a system rework as an excuse for a lack of new content, so it quite simply has to deliver. As a wise man once said, this one is make or break for Destiny 2.